We are basically the founders of Archetype and Fab Lab. Archetype is a product development studio. We started the both ventures actually at the same time. It happened as a form of out of necessity. And we started Archetype as a product development studio, as I mentioned, and we faced some difficulties actually in identifying the right collaborators and partners while we are developing and producing our products. And hence we started a Fab Lab, which is a platform to help people and the community to learn the skills necessary for building products and prototypes. So the Fab Lab is basically a space whereby you acquire skills in digital fabrication. You get the opportunity to collaborate with other people, and also you have access to a network of other Fab Labs and people also who are experts in certain industries. So the topic we're going to talk about today is basically prototyping, and it's something that, as I mentioned, we do basically on daily basis. You guys also, if you just maybe you notice that for some of your assignments, your projects, if you have some physical models to produce, you will be prototyping as you go. So in today's talk, we'll try to talk about basically the definition, the purpose, and the process of the prototyping. Then we will talk about some of the tools, and the tools, some of them are hardware, or some of them are also certain setups that help you in achieving the prototyping. So setups also are tools, and facilities are tools to help you prototype. Then we'll mention a case study from one of the products we built in our company, and at the end we will leave some time for you to ask us questions, and we can discuss with you and answer as to the best of our knowledge. So basically, a prototype is first and foremost is how we set ourselves to be comfortable with testing and showcasing ideas that are not finished. So the whole idea about prototyping is us exposing our weaknesses in unfinished work. And we believe that others will come and judge us on this unfinished work. But on the contrary, the opportunity this activity provides is allowing you to identify the weaknesses and the shortcomings on your prototype. So it's first, it's a mindset. We have to be willing to share unfinished work, and it's an iterative process. So in essence, none of the products you will make are finished. Even after you push a product to market, the product will still get some feedback from the end users, and you will start updating as you go. So the first release of any product will get a lot of feedback and comments, and you will see that the product will have some updates. I'm sure you guys are noticing that with all the apps that we are using. So all the time you are getting updates, continuous updates from the apps, and that's because there is feedback. Some bugs are identified. The developers will either get this feedback directly, or they might get it from their teams. And the most important point is that once we start prototyping, we have to state that we are intending to develop this prototype and improve it. Why? Because we have the tendency to get trapped with the idea that of a prototype, and we just get fixated on the first idea. So from the beginning, we have to have that in mind. We want to develop a prototype with the intention that we are going to modify it and improve it. Okay, so the next, it's a learning opportunity also. It's a way for us to learn by solving a problem, or maybe identifying a problem that we never anticipated. Okay, and it's also a way for you to communicate your ideas to end users and to the clients, or even to other team members. Okay, I just didn't mention one thing regarding the language. Okay, the language and the use of the word prototype. Uh, it's important to in what does it mean, because in the prototype, the first part of it, and the word comes from Greek. Okay, the first part is something primitive, and that's what I have said, that the ideas are unfinished, so it's a primitive state. And the type is impression. So this is basically my idea being reflected into something. It's a very primitive state. It's the first state, and the type is the impression. I'm sure you heard the saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. We say a prototype is worth 1,000 pictures. So you can summarize 1,000 pictures, or maybe 1 million words in a prototype. Okay. So that's, again, with a prototype, we are testing an idea. We are continuously improving the idea. We're sharing it with others to give us feedback and to comment on it. So it's a manifestation of our idea into the physical world, where others are able to evaluate and experience and interact with it. Okay, the prototypes could be categorized into either the level of complexity or accuracy and how much they represent the final product, or where are they in the stages of a product development. So it could be either based on the fidelity, and the fidelity means how much or how accurate it represents the final product. We have, let's say, a product, we're building a watch, for example, and I'm starting with a very low fidelity prototype, and that low fidelity prototype could be a strap of leather that I put on my hands with something made out of cardboard. Okay, so that's the low fidelity. The high fidelity is when I incorporate all the other mechanisms and even the textures that I want. And when it comes to the product development stages, we will come to discuss that. So you can see an example here of a low fidelity prototype. It's simply made out of paper. Okay, so you can make a prototype, in this case, of a backpack made out of paper and cardboard. All the things that you use for handcrafts are really good for making low fidelity prototypes. The low fidelity prototypes is simply something that will give you the impression, the how would you interact initially with that product. Okay, it doesn't resemble the final product, but it is on the lower end of the scale. And this is, by the way, is a scale. So you can pick a point in that scale and choose in which point you will represent your or you make your prototype, depending on the user and depending on the person you are sharing this prototype with. A high fidelity prototype, which is basically a product we developed, and you can see that we are trying to resemble the final look of the product, and even we are testing it, so it has the functionality, at the same time it has the same look of the final product. So it's a product that we developed for a client. It's meant to be used for sterilizing water into small containers. So you'll drop it in that small water container and will sterilize the water using some ultraviolet, okay, radiation. And in the shape and the looks and the number of parts and the detail in the parts we produced, this resembles the final product to a large extent. And when it comes to the function, we also had to take this product to a lab to test it in a lab setup and make sure that it will do the disinfection with the right level and the right amount as per the literature, okay? So on the other hand, when we are producing a prototype in the different stages of the product development, we are starting initially any product with a concept. We have an idea of something, and we are not sure if this idea is going to go further. So the first thing is we try to do a proof of concept. The first people we will show this idea is our team members. So we'll start by sharing an idea with our team members and try to think, would this idea be suitable or not? And when we say a proof of concept, maybe sometime you will be testing a specific technology or a specific idea or a specific mechanism or whatever that it's new and you want to prove it in that prototype. But as you progress in the product development, you will start to adding more complexity to that prototype. So you will start by adding something that would represent the outer look of the product. You'll start to think of the functions of that product. Then you will add more of the final aesthetics. So the feelings depending on the choice of material, the type of finish, the colors, okay, so all the textures, everything. So you start adding all the details that are related to the aesthetics. Then you will go into a phase where you want to take your product or your prototype to a manufacturer. So basically you have to put all the details required in terms of the technical drawings, all the precise measurements, the details about the electronic circuits, and so on. And all that will be shared in either a form of a prototype or also a lot of documentation, obviously, with your manufacturer. And obviously we have the alpha prototypes, which are basically after you start sharing your product with the first early adopters. You have an alpha, then you have a beta, and in those you keep on updating and improving your prototypes. Okay, why we build prototypes? Basically we build prototypes to be shared with others so they can test it, give us feedback. But there are other scenarios where we build prototypes, and I'm going to share with you those scenarios. And the purpose of those prototypes are a way to either get some interest from the industry, or also to get funding. Okay, so an example is a car that was built in the 70s. It's called DMC DeLorean. The person behind it was a prominent engineer in General Motors. He started this concept car in the 70s, and he launched it in the early 80s. So what you see is a prototype. It's a car. It is functional. It drives. It has most of the features, the seagull doors, the mechanisms to open those doors, the leather interior, everything. But most of it, or I would say all of it, was done by hand. So this is a manually built prototype of the car that they want to reach. And I'm sure you know that most of the automotive industry, they do that every year. They will build concept cars, and the idea of that is to not only to have an edge or to show an advantage. Sometimes it's out of also survival, because if they don't bring new ideas to the market, they will be taken over by others. Okay, so it's also a way for the car companies to test their ideas with end users, also to showcase their excellence in design, to show that they are innovative, and so on. But it's also a way for them to gather feedback from the end users. So car companies build concept cars, which are actually cars that can drive, but they are prototypes. This is an example of a prototype, but this prototype is called the minimal viable product. I'm sure you heard about the idea of a minimal viable product. And I'm sure you know this product. It's a Dropbox. Dropbox, when they wanted to test how people would be interested in their product, they didn't build their system on servers. They didn't purchase any space. They didn't have any service running. What they did was a simple 3-minute video. That video shows exactly how the Dropbox will work. And the way they measured how it is successful, or how is this minimal viable product is successful, is by seeing how much people signing in for the service. That was not there yet. Okay, so the service was not done yet, but they wanted to test the idea with the end users. So in this case, the minimal viable product, which is basically the least way for you to test the product with end users. And in this case, it was a video. And that's based on a book or even a methodology proposed by one of the prominent VCs in Silicon Valley. And the idea is you need to start testing your product ideas fast. You need to test it with your end users as early as possible. You need to fail fast. So in that sense, you don't invest a lot of time and a lot of money trying to build your idea. You try to push it as early as possible to end users and get their feedback, and they get their comments and see how they respond to your idea. And with that, you'll be able to see if your idea is viable or not. For example, I'm not sure if you know about the app called Instacart, which is basically an online shopping app like any of the apps we're using in Bahrain, like Baqala, but it preceded, like many years back, preceded Baqala. So Instacart, the first time they started the app, they started actually by an email list. So people will send their request in an email. They don't have to they didn't have to develop an app. So they shared an email with people. If you want someone to bring you grocery from the supermarket, just send us the list of your grocery on the email. And that's a minimal viable product. With this way, they were able to test the concept. Are people interested in sending their shopping list to someone to bring it for them? Okay, and in Instacart, basically, there is someone physically going to the shop and getting the things you want, okay? Not the shop sending it through a carrier, like preparing the shopping and giving it to Talabat. It was a person going to the shop and getting you the shopping. So that's a minimal viable product. Tools, one of the prominent desktop tools that are facilitating the process of prototyping are the milling machines. In this case, you have a machine that has a multi-head. You can basically use it as a milling machine, use it as a 3D printer or an engraver. And the revolution that desktop digital fabrication has brought about with is the ability for everyone to build and test ideas rapidly. Okay, so the testing and prototyping become really a very fast exercise because those digital fabrication tools that are desktop, in a sense, they are helping you in achieving that. Another tool that is also available is the electronics development boards. For example, those are examples of some of the development boards that can be used in any hardware product. You can use it to test your ideas and prototype before going into designing your own circuit. Okay, a Fab Lab, a space that similar to the one we have here, is also a space where you can, or a tool that helps you test your prototypes. because it's a place where you can meet with others, you can collaborate. There is a lot of it's a lot of knowledge base in this space. We have programs, educational programs, workshops, and also our team members are all expert in the disciplines of digital fabrication and prototyping. And we have an extensive network also globally of people who are expert in their fields, who can help you in developing your product. So a Fab Lab, in essence, is also a tool to help you develop a prototype or a product. These are some the examples of activities we have run in the Fab Lab. So in the Fab Lab, you can learn, you can collaborate, you can test and build your ideas. And now we get into the case study. Ali will be presenting that for you. So the case study is one of the products that we have built in our Archetype company for a client in Saudi. And in that case study, he will share with you some details about the process of prototyping, actual process of prototyping.
Actually taking you through one of the prototypes that we developed for a client. And it's actually, the product name is called the Jawhara or the Jawhara. Yeah, okay. So basically, we show you how we were able to convert the idea from just a concept, and this is, we can see it on the image on the left, to something as a final product that you see on the right. We call this as an MVP product, a minimum or a high fidelity product, because it has almost, I would say, 90% or 95% of all the functionalities that needed for that clutch. The customer, she's a fashion designer, and she was actually looking for developing a ladies clutch or a ladies bag that has some digital features built within that product. So this product, the way you see it right now, it has a built-in power bank to charge the phone, the smartphones. It has a panic mode feature. And so basically, as I was mentioning, we are following basically design thinking methodology, which is a human-centric design approach. What that means is basically that you put the end user at the heart of your design process. So the end user is very important. You try to understand their needs, their profile, the requirements as much as possible, and you'll design your product around that. So this has like a 5-stage kind of a process, where the first stage is the empathy, where basically this is where you try to get to know your end user as much as you can. And then you try to define the challenge or the problem or the issue that you want to solve in one way or another. Once you identify the challenge, you try to ideate different solutions around that challenge or challenges that you have identified. And once you do that, you pick one or two of these ideas and you try to prototype. And once you do the prototyping, you then test it with the end user, with the stakeholders, and you start getting the feedback. And then you go and reiterate this process as much as you want until you reach something that you actually are happy with, basically. So the first exercise, when you do the empathy exercise, you come up with what's called a design brief. I'll give you an example of this Jawhara design brief. Of course, I'm not going to go through it because it's a very detailed document, but I just wanted to show you the content or the type of content that we have in these kind of documents that we provide to the customer or to the end user. So basically, we start with a summary. We try to basically capture all the requirements of the user, what they are basically have in mind in terms of their product and how they want to have the end product in terms of the feel, the look, and the functionality, and all these things. We take them through, like, even trying to basically help the client to decide on the color themes that they want to use, the structures, the shape of the product itself, the materials to be used, the different combination of the materials. In that case, that clutch or that ladies bag was a combination of a wooden structure with some transparent parts. So we have glass or something transparent combined with wood. So basically, we try to identify all these things. We talk about the functionalities, the components of that clutch, and all these things until we agree. We have to agree on this document. I'm talking here, for example, about the app and how the app will be basically interacting with the end product. And that was, if you see it here, that was the early stage concept of what we came up with. So we wanted to start with this. The end product was not looking exactly like that one, but this is what we started with, kind of thing. So once we agree on the client, with the client on all these aspects, we start the exercise of prototyping, basically. Then, for example, I'll just show you some of the components that was within this product. One of them, as I mentioned, was electronics, because you had some electronic components that are integrated in that clutch. And again, I'll show you the amount of detail of work that we have been doing just to make this a reality. So we started, when we first started prototyping, actually we started with off-the-shelf prototyping, let's say microcontrollers like the Arduinos or others. So basically we tested the concept with that, but then once we basically achieved the functionality that we wanted to achieve, we actually started designing our own electronic circuit. So we did the whole design. It's a proprietary design for the client. And from that, we were able actually, so this is a document, I will not take you through it, but I mean, we went through all the diagrams, the functionalities, and all the dependencies and what we want to achieve. We ended up with a circuit, actually. This circuit was designed and fabricated for the client. So this is a proprietary circuit that was basically done for the client. And this is all the documentation that is basically related to that. Another element was, for example, the user experience. The user experience is also part of your product development. So you want to know how that basically user or the end user is going to be interacting with the product. And this is also an exercise by itself that you have to go through a lot of iterative processes to get to that. So you start by a mood board. We try to understand how the client or how the end user is going to be interacting with that bag. We started to identify the touch points where how that client was going to be interacting with this product, even before buying that product. From the day you market or you do some advertisement for that product until the user buys that product and actually start using it. So this is your user journey, basically how you will order your product, how you receive it, and how you will basically unpack it and read the instructions, and how you're going to be installing the app on your phone, and all these things. All these little details we have to take care of, and we have to basically incorporate in our product design to have something that is as close as the final product that's going to go to market. Again, this is all about the user journey. We even went to the details of how you receive your card, basically your clutch card, which has your information. It has the serial number of that product, how it's going to look, how you're going to be basically, it has a warranty in it, and all these things. So basically, we went to all these details so we can at least mimic that kind of user interaction with the client. We even did some profiling for the end users. So we wanted to know what is going to be their mentality, how they think about the products, what are their habits, what are the things that basically interest them, what are the things that frustrate them, and all these things. So that was also an exercise that has been done, so we can have a better understanding of the end user. Again, we go back to the design thinking process, where the user is the center of your product development. So that element is very important for anyone who's going to be developing their prototypes or products. I really strongly advise that you spend a lot of time before you start jumping into developing something to understand your user pain, to understand the requirement, to understand what really makes them excited. Because if you don't do that exercise, you have a very high chance of going through a product development life cycle, ending up with a product that nobody wants actually to use it. And this is going to be a very expensive journey for you. So we went even to the details of how the user is going to be interacting with the app, okay, and what are all the dependencies on that, and how they can basically navigate through the app, the looks and the feel of the app. All of these things we have basically taken care of, and we paid attention to have something, as I mentioned, as close as to the end product that will go to the market. Another thing basically that goes with the product, you need something that basically will help people visualize that product. Okay, for something that we do, usually we do animations, and we do kind of like a short video clips. For that, before you do the animation, you need something what is called a storyboard, or بالعربي احنا نسميه الحبكة أو السيناريو تبع القصة نفسها. But before you do the animation part of the project, you have to actually develop a scenario. So basically, we do it this way, like every screen how long is the screen, what is the action in that screen, how the images are going to be rendered in that on that screen. So you go one step, then this you can actually communicate this information with the animator or with the graphic designer, so he can convert this to an actual realistic animation. So you put all the details in here and what has to happen at every stage until you reach to your basically finalize your basically full animation of the product. Like for example, here we wanted basically to show the customers that you can actually change the cover of the clutch. So you can have different styles, different moods of the cover by simply changing that and putting another cover on top of the clutch. And this is basically was one of the design features that we had in our product. Once you finish that, actually, you have also to do something what you call an engineering design or technical drawings for the product. And this looks something similar to this. So this is actually an engineering or technical drawing of the file showing all the elements of that. This can be used as a base of your basically technical drawing that you can submit it to the manufacturers to manufacture that clutch for you. So it goes under the category of design for manufacturing. So it has all the details. You can go as much as detailed as the openings for the hinges, for example, the components and how they fit into each other, everything by the millimeter. Everything is there that you can see here is actually measured and done to the millimeter. So once any manufacturer who can take this file, he can actually reproduce that product using these specifications here. So you can see the amount of work that actually is involved in developing what looks like a simple product from the outside. Prototyping, and this is what you're talking about, a very high fidelity prototype. And as Dr. Salman mentioned, prototypes could be something as simple as just a paperwork that you can do, like a craft, using some papers or cardboard. And it could be as sophisticated as what I have just shown you here. So basically, I'm going to just take you through very quickly with some of the images, the process that we have done. So it started with the sketches. We started doing some sketches for the client until she chose the mood and the aesthetics and the shape that she is basically happy with. From that, we started basically building our prototype. So here we created a small lab where he started experimenting with different materials, different wood materials, different chemicals that is going to give us the transparent area of the clutch. And this goes into what you call the material science or composites material science, where you have to do a lot of testing and a lot of research between different materials, and you see how you can integrate them or combine them together, because different materials have different properties, and you have to really understand the properties of these materials to come up with something that is sturdy, reliable, and can actually function the way you want it to function. This is all examples of the testing that we have done. We have done a lot of testing. We have done more than 30 or 40 different prototypes until we reach to the final thing that you're going to be seeing, inshallah, soon. That was our first attempt to do the prototype. So basically what you see here is basically actually we built in or integrated the electronic circuits within the clutch. And this is all being done right now, like by hand, okay? Some of the items here are done by machines. Like the wooden frame that you see here is done by what we call a CNC machine. The plastic pieces that you see here, the L shape, which is the case for the electronics, is actually done by 3D printers. The circuits we have designed and fabricated ourselves, and then we try to combine all of these things in one product. Here, just showing you some of the processes of, like, for example, 3D printing one of the pieces. Here, this is the inlay, the internal part of the clutch, and how we have basically tried to do different items, even with the fabrics and everything. So even the selection of the fabric was a challenge, and we had to select the proper fabrics for that kind of inlay. Now here you see the early stage. Then after we finished that prototype, okay, we were happy with it, and then we started reiterating again to develop it a bit further. So in that case, we changed the material that we have been using. So in that case, the transparent part was made out of acrylic plastics, and then you have the cover that's made out of wood, and everything else as you see it. So you can see the whole process and how it's basically is progressing. Now, this is almost the end product, but again, the client gave us some feedback, and we had to go back to the design again and try to reiterate again to come up with something that is closer to what we have been trying to strive for or to achieve. We can just, this is another example of how we are trying to fit all the electronics within the product itself. Now this is the end product. You can see that, for example, even the transparent part changed from color from completely transparent to something that is green transparent. You can see the light functioning, the app is functioning, and we were able to actually achieve all the functionalities required from this product. Again, these are all just images of the end product. So you can see this is the end product that was actually handed over to the client. So yes, that was a quick kind of tour through a typical, let's say, high fidelity, rapid prototyping service that we have done for one of our clients. It will give you, I hope it gave you an idea of what it takes for a prototype to be developed and what are the elements that goes around that prototype. Of course, each product or each kind of end product will differ in terms of the requirements and the process that you have to follow to develop it. But the main elements are the same. So basically, you have to really understand the end user requirement. From that, you decide on your prototyping plan or action. You start executing, and then it goes from there in an iterative process until you reach to the end thing that you can feel that you're comfortable with, confident, and then you can actually share it with end users, with potential investors, and you can actually take it to manufacturing. And the next step after that, if you're really happy with the results that you're getting, you can actually take it to the next stage, which is design for manufacturing, which is a completely different ballgame because it has a lot of other elements that you have to take care of, especially when you design for manufacturing. But this is the base, or let's say the basic requirements for you to take a product to market, basically. Thank you very much.